really close to his dream of just being able to say what he wants and boom, he gets it, you know?
Okay, so yeah, all right. No, thanks for bringing that up. I mean, if you want to join him, that's fine too.
No. I'm sure he's asleep if he wasn't planning for it.
Right. So we'll get started. I've already started recording. So thanks everyone for joining. Um, this is a repeat of the basic workshop that I did 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago. So I just made sure anybody who attended that is not attending this. My plan today is so basically when Pat asked me to do this, I was very aggressively working on a lot of this agentic builds. And then I did some brainstorming with an AI and I realized I have too much material. So I split it into two, basic and advanced. So the purpose of basic is it does not assume any background. You may be doing some agentic coding or agentic AI work, or may not be. It tries to basically bring everybody up to speed at the same level of kind of understanding of core concepts. So in this talk, you will learn the model. A lot of this is like things that I have learned by hit and trial or by trying it few ways and then try to finalize or crystallize what works. And then I have a small toy project through which I'll show a build. Just before this meeting, an hour ago, I mailed the materials so that people who have Claude licenses, they can just follow my lab material. There is a online open source GitHub that you can clone and follow the steps that are there in the PDF. And then there's this very, very touchy topic about safety with Agentic AI. So I'll try to address that. And then we'll see what it means to our role, people who are in the tech industry, and what does it mean.
Okay. Akhil, I have a question. You just said that.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm sorry. I just joined. You said that you sent an email with the.
Yep.
I didn't get it though.
It doesn't matter. That email is not important. I mean, I can resend it to you. It's for
Okay.
after the talk. It's after
gotcha. It's like a lab type thing after the talk.
Yeah, it's a lab. Yeah, it's a lab.
Oh, I got it. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So before we start, any other expectation that anybody has? Okay.
No, thank you.
All right, let's go. So, we all have seen this hype, right? People would have heard that AI will replace developers. Somebody like me would have said, I get 10x productivity overnight. We would have seen some demos or people talk about it, and you would have heard the term vibe coding, or in some cases somebody would have made a claim that I finished this work in 2 hours and things like that. So that noise is there everywhere, and what we'll try to do is, instead of making a sell about this is the way it works, we'll try to use it in a toy project. When I did the first version, I did it in a real project, and I collected feedback, and everybody said that since they could not attach, they do not know anything about video, so that real build actually was very misleading, confusing for them. So I went out and I tried to do it with a toy project. No concept has been altered. Everything will remain the same. So the effort here is to orient everybody to a certain mental model of development and then try to apply it. In the toy project also, I have 4 phases of development. In this, I'll demonstrate phase 1 and I'll push you guys, everybody to fork from the GitHub and do phase 2, 3, 4, 5 yourself, just to get a know-how of how it will work. Okay. All right. So let's see. So in my material, you'll see on the top, there is a little bit of kind of orientation. So there are slides which are about the ground, which is setting up about core concepts so that you're building up to something. And then there's a discussion of a workflow of how, in my opinion, agentic AI build should happen. Then you actually do the build. Then we discuss some patterns around this. And then, last 4 slides, we reflect. Okay. So this slide, I think, is a very, very important thing. It has, especially for people like me, Sean, even Luciano, Vadim, who have seen programming happen over 30 years. they would relate very well to it. So let's probably start from there. So long ago, when I was in college, we used to only use Emacs to do development. So we would have this black terminal. We would have, I mean, projects that I had, it had like 50, 60 C files. And we would constantly be doing Emacs, grep for something, find something, change it, then go to the command window, run something so that it builds. You do some kind of testing. So you keep repeating this loop, which is called the REPL loops. L is loop. As a human, you read something, you evaluate it. During that evaluation, you make a change. That change prints something else on your console. You read it again, you evaluate it again. So this loop is the core REPL loop that has been there in the programming. And then IDs came, and then that loop became slightly different, that now you're seeing it in a kind of a more cosmetic, ornamental way, that you can jump from function to function or variable declaration to something else. So your navigability changed, but your core intention of navigating the code remains the same, and the loop doesn't change. You make a change in code, hit a button, something builds, you try to test something. So that loop is there. Now, today, you can do the same thing with agentic AI, right? Slightly differently. So what I have in this purple box on the left is the any agent. So agent example is Anthropic's Claude or Cursor or Windsurf or GitHub Copilot. All of them have this loop, which I call as agents inner loop. So how does it work? You give it a prompt, and I'm sure by now almost everybody has done this at some level or the other. You have a window like, GPT-like window, a chat box, sometimes inside your IDE like Visual Studio or VS Code. You say something, the LLM does an evaluation of what you said. It happens in cloud or wherever is your LLM running. It decides what tools to call. So there's a critical part, that it decides what tools to call on your machine. Examples of tools are read, search, write, git, do something with bash. So a tool is LLM's way of, based on this prompt, LLM decides, okay, from this prompt, it looks like I should be looking at all the C# files. So it'll generate a tool call to say, read these 5 C# files. And sometimes those tools don't hit anything because there's no C# file like that. So it goes back and it tries to craft a better search pattern. And every time this happens, that you have said something, goes to LLM, makes some tool calls lead to a response. Critical thing, response goes back to LLM decides the next game, and this keeps repeating till the time something in the LLM says that it is done. So you start from here and you end here, right? So agent decides when to stop. So now when you are driving this, what do? You have an outer loop. What does the outer loop do? You give a prompt, because your work is literally not done here. You have a larger task of, let's say, implementing a new screen or a new test case or something log analysis. So your loop doesn't. So what happens is you give a prompt, it does the agent's inner loop, agent stops. Now you are seeing a response in the form of something, code which got written, test which got executed, but then you're back into this loop. So you are an outer loop over the agent, right? So everybody should remember this, that the agentic way of working is still the old REPL approach. It's just that within your outer REPL loop, an inner REPL loop is constantly running. So why am I saying this? Is because this line, this green arrow, is your opportunity to guide this agent better, because based on what you see, you give a next prompt. Then it does something, sometimes 50, 60 tool calls, generates a response which manifests in some files, and then you do something, right? So key message is you decide when to redirect. Okay. Agent loops autonomously, you loop around the agent. So what is your job? In this system, what is your job? Your job is to frame the problem. You have to be very, very descriptive, careful, and specific about what you're trying to achieve. So you frame. Your next job is to checkpoint. Whenever you see that things look okay, for example, all tests pass, or software is building, or CI is passing, you have some mental checkpoint. Based on that checkpoint, you achieve kind of your goal. And whenever you see it wither off, you redirect, you course correct. So this green arrow is when you course correct. Okay. So this is just a repetition of, inner loop, agent agent decides the next tool call and calls the task done. But in the outer loop, you decide the next prompt and you're satisfied, and that's when you stop. So remember this loop, it will come handy. Okay. The next core concept is LLMs have no memory. This is not very evident from how we use all these LLMs, but the very interesting kind of missing information or missing piece is that it actually has no memory. Even though we work with an LLM like Claude for an hour, it still does not have any memory. Literally what happens is every time it's just a text in, text out system. You give it a text, and I just showed it in the last slide. You give it something, it goes to LLM, it thinks of the next response, and it gives you a response. Now, when it is tool call, this same response carries some code or some commands for the local agent. The LLM, the thinking machine, just does this. You give text in, you give text out. So now where is the memory? The memory is in the session. So we get this illusion of a conversation, but what's really happening is, this is where I want everybody to pay extreme attention, that you start this conversation here, you say something, agent says something back. Okay. In response to that, you say something, agent says something. So each of these arrows which go in are getting stacked. It is like saying you took a flight. When you took the flight, you had one suitcase. You came back, you now have one suitcase and a small bag. And then you bought another suitcase. Now you're going, you have two suitcases and one bag. Then you have, two suitcases, two bag, and you have another fanny pack. So every time you keep moving down this chain, this arrow keeps becoming bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. That is the only way LLM has a context of your conversation. There is no other memory. So the onus of remembering what happened is on this side, not on this side. So if you think of this line as a call to cloud via an API, what keeps going on this arrow keeps stacking up. So you start from 1,000 bytes, it becomes 5,000 bytes, 10,000 bytes, keeps on increasing. And this is what builds up the context. It is both useful and it's also, I'll rest of my slides a lot about this, that this is what makes this thing do wonderful things, because if you are at the 5th or 6th or 20th iteration of this, it has all the conversation history. Because of that, it is able to now generate or decide better for you. But they all tell us that they have a limited context window. You would see newspaper articles and news everywhere that LLMs used to be 64K. Nowadays, 200 and 250K is common. And then next wave is coming where million tokens are coming. Token is nothing but a translation of how many bytes you can send. Literally, I mean, it's slightly more than that, but you can think of it that way, that if this conversation is very long, that means on this outgoing arrow, you're consuming too many bytes. They have a limit because end of the day, they are a computer system. They cannot take unlimited amount of input because this neural network will not know what to do with it. It has limits. So you hit. So remember that context window is the text budget of what you can send. And the more garbage this has is the worse the response is going to perform. Because if this stack is littered with noise, which is irrelevant to what you're trying to achieve, then you're throwing confusion at the LLM and it's going to give you confused answers. Okay. So I'll take a pause because when I did the first two, people did not know that it has no memory, and they thought that whatever we are talking is somehow getting registered. So think about this. If you have confusion, ask me right now. I would want to clarify.
I've
Yeah.
been raising my hand for a
Yeah.
while.
Sorry.
So for instance, when it comes to, I have most of my experience now is with Gemini CLI, right?
Mhm.
And one of the things that I do through the prompting process that you're describing, this iterative process, is before I finish my session, I ask the LLM to essentially create a sort of context file or a README file
Mm.
that saves all of the key things that were learned, lessons learned, whether it was the LLM going in the wrong direction,
Mhm.
and then I had to correct it, or the LLM doing something that should never do. So I try and create, in a way, some
Like,
guardrails.
you don't have to go any further, Luchan. I can give you a simple answer. You can leave
Okay.
this class because what you're discussing is the advanced class material. So, I
Okay.
mean,
Uh, okay.
the solution to the problem that I pose is in these slides, and then these techniques that you're talking about, I cover them in detail in the next slide,
Okay.
next workshop.
Okay. No,
So
I'll stay.
no, I'm just making a joke that
Yeah.
we can discuss this, and a lot of people will get confused with that. So
Okay. Okay. Sure.
it's
I'll shut
written
up
here.
then.
No, you can talk.
Okay.
That's not a
Yeah.
problem. I'm just saying
Yeah.
uh, this is why I split it into basic and advanced, right? So the
Yeah.
whatever you just said is also written on the screen, that these
Yeah.
MD files is the memory that survives the session. I just
Yeah.
don't want to kind of jump to that conclusion. I want to build it.
Yeah.
So
Also, one more thing. So when it comes to Claude, I'm not sure, but for instance, for Gemini, even when Gemini CLI, even when working um, on the same project, there is saved a list of sessions that once had,
it's exactly same. It's exactly same.
and you're able to, okay, fine.
It's exactly same. It has a way to resume any session. You can also extract text from other sessions. So it's exactly same.
Okay.
Okay, so let me go back to this. So remember that context is limited. Now, what will happen when you're in this chat business and this contact has it has reached the limit, like your stack is full, nothing more can be done. So what they do, these LLM agent implementations, the coding agent implementation, what they do is as you start approaching full, they do this very confusing thing called compaction. You'll see that the agent would say, your context is reaching the limit, starting compaction. What compaction does is it implements an algorithm where the LLM itself tries to reason from the conversation what is useful and what is not. And the simplest logic that they have put, I've seen it across all the tools, is they have this very simplistic implementation which says whatever is just said at the bottom of this stack is the most important thing. Because, you know, it's like you started going from here to New York, you lost way, you took a turn, you took 2 U-turns and blah, blah, blah. All that is not important. But the fact that you're now close to New York is important, right? So by that logic, what they do is they use like a decay algorithm to say whatever is latest is the most important. Whatever is kind of 10 conversations deeper is less important. Whatever is 100 conversations deeper is even less important. Okay, so you can see that so the effect of what was said hours ago is least into the compacted output. This, the older messages get summarized. This is the biggest reason why we have to scheme it up to make sure that we want it to work constantly, right? But as soon as we hit this limit, we're done. We are now losing information. And I have run into so many, and all of us, Sid, whoever has been, so many head scratching events that because we are working so fast, I just said it. What happened to that? I mean, I just put this little bit of information that please use port number 3001, and it uses, and then compaction happens, and then it forgets because the common knowledge in Node is that it'll use 3000, or common knowledge in something else is it'll use something regular. So whatever is kind of well-established benchmarks, or well-established standards, it will follow them. But anything that you try to nudge, it will forget them. So what happens? So what forgetting looks like? agent asks a question, you answered. Agent contradicts earlier work. So it had confidently claimed this is how I'll run tests, and now it is claiming I don't know how to run tests. It basically forgets all the conventions that you were established. And I forgot to say that, but in some of these slides, I've put this dog metaphor, which is just to draw attention that, just think of this as training a dog. And this compaction or this forgetting thing is similar to this dog just walks into a room and then he's confused as to which door should I take. He doesn't know whether he wanted to go to kitchen or to living room or to wherever. So he just comes, why did I come here? Okay. Any comments? Okay. So now what I have is a process. So I just wanted to establish these two core concepts of the REPL loop and context, and the fact that context is limited, the fact that context stacks up, the fact that it goes through compaction. So everybody should remember them. So then there is this very interesting 4-step loop for every feature development. And I'll show you, or I'll discuss how there is a defense mechanism for all these compactions. I'll talk through some of this, and then we'll jump into doing a lab to see it, right? So what I've figured out, and now papers are coming on exactly this way, that when you start using LLM or Claude or Gemini or any of them, you will always have to think into these 4 steps. First step is onboard. In onboarding phase, the agent explores existing code. It builds a shared understanding. So it's very similar to a new developer joins your team. You give that person 1 or 2 days or sometimes a week to say, okay, clone from Git and see what you can figure out, right? So this onboarding phase for me, I use it in absolutely everything that I do. That before starting any task with the LLM, I first say, we are going to work with blah. A similar example of that is in blah. Please explore this. So that's one prompt that I use. Sometimes I say, explore this project and report back as to what does it do. This is for smaller projects. For bigger projects which have large code base, I try to slice up the onboarding prompt to say, look at all the something and then tell me how they work. So there is an onboarding phase. Okay. Then there's a plan phase. So you were given a target, a task description. You go through a plan phase where you do a co-design activity. You ask the agent to design it for you. You pose the problem and say, let's design. So it'll give you some solutions. You say, not this, but that. However, or you will pick some and say, refine this, or say, this is bullshit, throw it up. So you keep doing this bing, bang, bing, bang. You're still not writing any code. You're just co-designing, and your objective is to come back with the agreeable design that you think is good. Okay. So now you agree to a design. At this point, you generate a plan.md. We'll see that. And then you get into execute phase. Execute phase is when you tell this agent to implement the plan. So plan says change file 1, change file 2, change file 3, run this test, write this test, run this test. So it's like a sequence of steps that you have developed along with the thinking power of that LLM and your own experience. And then in the execute phase, it is not planning, it is now executing them. So what matters during execution is, because you are not writing code, LLM is writing, so you need to set guardrails. You need to make sure that whatever gets developed is at least an attempt in the right direction, if nothing more. And then you have to constantly build this verify into this, and I'll come to the percentages in a minute. So by doing a lot of these trials, I have figured out that in this new world of some software writing software, the biggest use that we humans have is to insert ourselves in the testing loop, and not at the QA type of loop where you do weeks of development and then give it to somebody to test. No, you make a plan. I'll come to some templates of that. You make a plan, split your plan into phases. Typically, these phases are like 2 hours long. So we'll code for 2 hours, then we'll verify something. That something, a lot of times, LLM is not able to figure out what is it that can be verified, and you have to give inputs. You have to say, okay, your plan has 15 steps without a verification. Think of a way to verify. So it's like saying you're supposed to go 100 miles. After every 10 miles, you look out of the window and say, am I in the right location? Should I be going here, or should I take a left turn, or should I take a right turn? So you're being cognizant of what progress is being made instead of flying blind. Okay. And this thing is very important. I have, I think, a whole slide on that. All the time that I have done LLM development, absolutely every time I've made them write tests. So I'll say write unit tests. And in every project, I have been through moments that it will say all tests have passed, and I will not see the net outcome. I'll not see what I'm expected to see. Okay. That is the reason why we have to be there. Okay. So any comment on the 4-step process, OPEV? Just remember it like that.
No. Now you're describing it as a manual process right now.
Mhm.
Are you going to be covering like using things like conductor, for instance?
Same answer. Same answer as last question. That's
Okay.
advanced class material.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You've come to primary school. You should be in graduate school.
No, because I want to be valedictorian of the primary school.
Okay, so a little bit of story on this. So now what we are going to do is I've sent the lab material. Because everybody do not have Claude, and we don't have enough time that everybody shares this desktop. I will follow the instructions of my own lab materials, and I'll show you what's happening. So let me first tell you what it is. So what I have is, in the lab material, there is a GitHub repo, which is public. It's called the Agentic demo. It has a backend implementation. It's called, maybe I can just turn off my camera for some time to save some bandwidth. So it's called Note API. It's already built, but it's only the backend. It does not have a front end. So it's a Node.js based backend, which maintains nodes for you. So you can create a new node, you can delete a node, update a node, you can tag the node, you can search by tags. So all that API is there. And it is backed by an in-memory data store. Just to keep it simple, it has some test cases. It has this very interesting thing that I want everybody to review. And this thing is same whether you use Gemini or Windsurf or anything. Each of them have I call it the autoexe.bat. So people who have used DOS would know what is autoexe.bat. That the system boots up and runs the first thing. It's like a bootstrap process. So exactly like that in Claude world, this uppercase Claude.md in the root is the bootstrapper.
Or Gemini.md.
Yeah, Gemini.md and Windsurf rules, and each of them have a bootstrapper, which as soon as the agent launches, the first thing it reads to do something, right? Okay, so
this file is automatically generated, you're saying?
Yes.
No, I'll show you that you can use it to update it. In Claude, there are two ways. You can say init, so you go to an empty folder and say init, or you can just open a text file and type some words there. I mean, in my case, I'll give you a boilerplate that you can update.
Another question, Nikhil.
Yeah.
So for Gemini also, there is a folder called Gemini where you are able to create skills.
Yeah.
Is that also for the next?
It's called .cloud here. It's called .cloud. No, I'll show that.
Oh, okay, good. Another question. So Sean Dyer, you sent an invitation for Claude Enterprise, I think it is, right? Are we supposed to? So it says join Blue Box Security Inc. on Claude.
Lucy, I'm sorry. Can I? I mean, you can probably discuss it offline.
Okay,
sure. A lot of people waiting. I'm sorry. I just want to keep focused on that. Is that okay?
Sorry. Yes, of course.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So what we'll do is the backend exists, and as part of this, we'll build the front end. And while we build the front end, it will be built with React and TypeScript. And what we are trying to achieve is a front end view to list nodes, to create edit nodes, and introduce basic styling. In fact, we'll do very little portion of that. We'll only do the phase one. And then we'll show that it is connected to the API. It doesn't exist, right? So let me jump to code here. So what I have, you already have this material, Agentic AI workshop. I have sent it on email and I've just opened it here. I have set up VS Code in a way that it's visible and I'm using large fonts and all that. So all of this is just written here. So I'll skip over this. It says clone. I've already cloned it. And because this is the same repo that I use for advanced class and basic class. So in the basic class, you make sure you start by branching, by going to this branch. This is a starting point. Okay. So I just want to show that I have that thing cloned and it's here. And then it says install dependencies and verify backend works. So is everybody able to see my screen? Somebody say yes or say no.
Yeah, I can see it. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So this shows that there's some code exists, and we'll quickly explore that. So I'm just running the past test cases just to make sure that when we start, so far we have not used Claude at all. It's just what got checked out from the repo as it is. So it's running these tests. And I think what I remember is it has 21 test cases. So these 21 test cases are there. Then it says verify that API is running. So what I'll do is I'll go to this other window and I'll run npm run dev. So the backend is now running. And then it says you can test it. And since there are no nodes, it's going to say that there is no nodes, or it return an empty array. So this empty array return is a proof that this works. So you should see empty array. Keep the thing running now first. So let's get back to what I said about onboard. So let the agent explore existing backend and build understanding of what it will extend. I have already why it matters. So what are the steps? I have another window here. It's just the regular Microsoft command. I say Claude. Okay. So notice that Claude started in this folder. It is using this particular model, and this is my plan. This is the Claude version, just to get oriented. Okay, next thing it says, give the agent an onboarding prompt. So I'm going to copy paste it, but we are going to slow read it. So I'm going to ask this agent, I need you to explore this Note API backend project and understand its structure. It's like even I'm new here. I don't know what's happening. So, and then I'm saying, please read claude.md and understand project basics, explore the API endpoints, review the data model, check what tests exist, summarize what you learned. Okay. Don't make any changes yet, just explore and report back. So these are prompts that I've developed. In your projects, you may have something different. You can take inspiration from here and refine it. This is a way to kind of control what it sees by saying explore. You can extend this sentence to something else in your case, but I'm giving this tip that if you take Blue Sky Git, for example, it has 20,000 files. So it'll be a bad idea to say explore all 20,000 files. Really, really bad idea. So you can say, look at this function app code to understand how function apps are written. Look at this stored procedure, or look at 5 biggest stored procedures to understand. That's all fair play for onboarding. But exhaustively asking is a bad idea. Okay, so I'm going to just run it now. Let's see what happens. So all I'm going to do is copy paste. Okay. I pasted those lines.
When will we see the claude.md file?
Oh,
now a good time or?
Yeah, we'll see. This step is not going to change anything. It's here. So since you brought it up, I'll open it anyway. So
okay.
Yeah. So this is the existing claude.md. The reason it exists, Vadim, is because the backend also was developed using the same technique. So while doing that, So it only talks about backend right now. So remember backend, front end. So
basically, in addition to making agent learning the code by itself, you also supplying the kind of project description you created, well,
exactly.
manually or with AI, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. You can do it. So I mean, you can see this is like a regular MD file. It's any other markdown, right? It just has there's no structure here, absolutely no structure. We can quickly review the section. So it says Node API, it's a REST API for something. These are the commands that, most of them are common knowledge. Even if you, in this case, even if you don't put them, I have extreme confidence that won't matter. But in various projects, we have different things which we put under npm run in, in the JS projects, and likewise in C#, you'll have other things, right? And then there is a mention of code conventions. How do we write code? And I have put 5 things here. You can have lots of things which can go into a separate file called coding conventions, which you just kind of, you don't call it, you insert it here. There's a convention for that. You can say @ and put another file name like coding style.md. And then there are some anti patterns that do not do this. So like while developing code, do not put console.log and do not use any types, use proper interfaces, don't install a database. So these are all signs of trouble which can come. If you don't have it, this project will Postgres and it'll start downloading. This is why guardrails come into play. Okay. All right.
Okay.
So, and you can trim it down, but always remember to tell it not the requirements. This is a critical thing. Claude.md should not have your requirements, because requirements are fluid, right? They're changing with every task. But this is your team's way of working, that this is how we work. We always raise pull requests, or pull request commit message should have blah. All those rules that your team follows should come here.
Okay. I would be having a hard time imagining the one for C# project, but I guess it's just a matter of experience. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So we gave this prompt, it searched something, and we'll answer some of Luciano's questions also once I get back. So while searching, it figured out that in .claude folder, there was something called API convention.md. And my version is very small. All API handlers must validate inputs before processing use. So the specifics are not important because we are just doing a toy project. What is important is this is a way to insert things into. So whatever you put inside .claude/rules is a way of saying that for a certain type of files, do certain things. Okay. So now it came up with a summary. It said this is the structure, this has route. So it basically navigated space. This is a small project, so it could figure out everything. And then it said this is your data model. So Node has an ID, blah blah blah, and storage is in memory. It's being maintained as a map. These are the endpoints because it's a front and back end split. So it knows the back end endpoints now. Then it found these validation rules. And it says when you create, you should have title, content, and tags. When you update, all fields are optional. So it's just its own navigation. Then it found that there are some to-dos in the code, because in the existing code, there's purposefully I've added some / to-dos, because in the next workshop, we have something which tries to solve to-dos in a certain way. And then there is test coverage, that it already has this many tests. And this statement seems wrong because we actually have 21, but it's showing 13. So static analysis only yielded 13. Maybe there are other tests which are dynamic. So, okay. Let's go back to lab materials. We are here. We did an onboarding exercise. We saw that the agent did. So those tool calls happened here. If you want to see from my previous talk that as it was exploring, it loaded these files, they went, and there is this control O mode, which can show more, but we can skip it for this. Okay. It discovered, I showed you that. Now comes the time that we want to update the Claude.md. So this is another thing to learn, that you can use Claude itself to update Claude.md, right? So my lab material says, sorry, my lab material says add the front end context. So right now the agent does not know anything about front end. So the prompt is, now that you understand the backend, update claude.md with a new section explaining that we'll be building a React front end at the following. So now this is where knowing and not knowing helps, right? So we know I just ran a server at 3000. The front end will run on port 3001 to avoid conflict. It should use the existing REST API, because if you don't say this, it's very, and if you did not do onboarding, this thing is like it can go uncontrollably. It may end up implementing what already exists. Okay, keep it simple. Don't do state management library, just React hooks. I don't even know what that means, by the way. Follow the same testing approach. So existing code base has 21 test cases, add more test cases. So I'll put it here. So now you can see that it's whatever I just said went there. You'll see it do some. Okay, so this is an interesting thing. So it figured out that needs to update. Now it's asking me save the file. And this is a section in my talk today also. So almost always you should say allow all edits during this session, because if you don't do it, the next file it touches is going to ask it again, and it'll become very irritating very soon that you were told that it'll autonomously do things, but it is constantly asking you back, should I do this? Should I do this? It's like, you have a person who looks after your house, and every time he goes from one room to other room, he comes to you, can I go to that room? And he goes there. Can I open the door? Can I lift the table? So it's all those can I, should I basically become irritating. And because of that, always choose the second option, which says, I think what you're doing is fine. I'm okay to, if this was something else, like for example, if it was trying to install a new NPM package, I would not have said, do it every time, because I don't want it to install random NPM packages. You can extend it, NPM or the package manager in C#, right? NuGet. So those things, it's a good idea to not say do always. And in most cases, when it is reading files, updating files, it's okay to say yes.
So
Okay.
you're talking for this session, right? Still,
Yeah.
like do this one time during this session, or
Yeah.
do this every time for this session.
Yeah, so it's a good question that you brought up.
What
Yeah.
about YOLO?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
YOLO is slide number 14. Hold up.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
Okay. So, all right. So I lost my chain of thought. Okay. Yeah. So I asked it and it added it. Nothing special. Whatever I said, it just read and it appended this thing. React front end, right? Sometimes you can use this brainstorming, which I have not done. It'll come in the next section to write it better. Okay, but this time it was just a copy paste. Okay, so let's go back to lab materials. Verification. The agent can describe APIs without being told details. We just saw that, right? It already has a description. You can actually chat with it. You can say what REST APIs does the backend have for delete? This is from this. Here is the delete. So delete something, deletes this. And this helps many times. It's similar to kind of searching for code. So we went through this onboarding. This thing is now ready. It has some hint of, even this is not our requirement. It's just saying when you do the React front-end development work, what should you do? Okay, so we'll go back to my PowerPoint. We did the onboarding. Okay, so let's think through. You saw the demo, now let's think through. So why it matters, so that it should know. It's like this dog. Let me sniff around first. So you bring this new dog to your place. It says, let me smell this, let me sniff this, so that I have a remembrance of what's where. When you start, it knows nothing. But when you finish onboarding, it knows. Now, the catch there is, the balance there is that you do not want it to know everything, because if you make it know everything, your context will rot. It will become too big. And you do not want it to know too little, because then it will make miserable mistakes. It might repeat the code which is already written. Okay. So when we did it, already explored the API routes, it discovers endpoints, it figured out how the data schema works, and we updated the cloud.md. We have still not told us anything about our requirement. Okay. So let's go to the next thing. So the next thing is plan. In plan, we'll do lab 2. What is plan? So plan in my world is co-design, don't dictate. You give it the problem, don't give your solution. Because I've learned the hard way that many times I think that the solution that I know is the best. And I have two choices, either to overload my judgment over Claudes or over LLMs and just say, do this, or be a little humble and pose the problem and see what it says. Most of the time, it surprises me by giving 3 options. One of them is very similar to what I said. One of them is better than that. And one of them is almost useless. So it makes me look up to see what better I can do. So it's a big thing to just give a problem. And this is the phase in which you do back and forth. You have to push the envelope and see how much you can drive it to do good planning. And unfortunately, this is where I feel that less experienced developers will struggle, because you may not know what is good plan because you have not seen many plans. So what will happen is we will try it now in this phase. When I do the hands-on, we'll describe the requirements. The requirement is list nodes, create or edit, tag, filtering, and search. Based on that, agent will make something called a plan.md. It will build it around the API that already knows. Then as a human, I'll review and I'll push back, do this change. And this basically will show you the co-design conversation. The output is a plan.md. Any questions on this before I jump into the lab? No question. Okay, let's do lab 2 then. So planning with an agent is collaborative. You provide requirements and constraints, agent proposes an approach, and you refine it together. It results in a plan.md. Okay. So my next prompt is going to be describe the requirement to the agent. What am I trying to do? I want to build a React frontend for this Node API backend. I mean, in another world, I would have actually brainstormed whether React is a good solution for this problem or not, but this is a toy project. My requirements are display all nodes in a list. Each node shows title, content, and tags. Users can create a new node from title, content, and tags. User can edit an existing node. User can delete a node. The UI should handle loading and error states. Keep it simple. No CSS framework, no state management library, just React hooks. Please draft a plan.md that breaks this into phases. Each phase should have clear deliverables and be testable. You remove testable, it will do something different. You remove phases, it will do something different. So this prompt, every part of it is important.
How did you come with this complete prompt? Did you try it, then you wasn't satisfied, and you try it again and again? Because I cannot imagine, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but did you have all those requirements in there from the beginning, or it was kind of iterative process?
So
I'm talking about let's say no CSS framework, no state management library. Did
because
you
it's a
edit
toy project
all at
because
once, or it was some kind of iterative process because the agent did something not something you expected actually?
No, none of that. I want this this workshop to be time limited. That's why I'm trying to cut things which don't matter. You can have, I mean, so if I if I remove this part, right, no CSS framework, it's going to build a CSS framework, which will extend this workshop because then the round trips will be many, right? The number of files which need to be maintained. So this is just, many of them are put just so that we can have a start to finish experience in a short 2-hour window. That is the sole purpose.
Oh, okay. That's not exactly what I meant, but okay, let's continue.
So one thing I'll mention though, for instance, with tools like Gemini, I don't know for Claude, as you start typing, you can have the same way that Copilot suggests code when you're doing like, C, C++, or sorry.
This also has.
Yeah.
As I do some work, this line will keep getting, it will automatically prompt me what is next. So
exactly. So it allows you to autocomplete suggestions that it thinks are useful to what you started typing. So it takes that you're typing and it starts suggesting things along the lines of what you're trying to do with you.
Yeah,
and you can decide to take it or not take it.
Very, very important concept that I wanted to push in this workshop is this, that I have seen young developers just type like 5 words and expect code will work. Say write test, improve tests, refactor this code. That is not a good idea.
Right.
A good
Garbage
idea
in,
is
garbage out.
Yeah, good idea is to take a pause, think what you want to do. I mean, in the early days, I used to literally keep a notepad window running and I used to type what I want and copy paste. But then you can do the same typing here. So to keep this workshop fast moving, I actually developed the prompts so that we can use them here. And my other idea was to give good starter samples for this type of prompts to everybody. That's also a thing, right? The fact that you can write it in multi lines is not obvious for many, many days. This thing gives you just one single line, right? So when you start with this point that, so for example, I want to put it, so if I say ABCD, I can say shift enter, and then I say, so I can keep typing as many things that I want. When I started in September, even this was not obvious to me. I used to struggle.
Yeah, you can Gemini, you can just explicitly do the backslash and it'll just give you the next line. I haven't tried shift enter. I think shift enter also works.
Yeah. These are just starting up hassles. So let's proceed.
Yeah, but if you don't know this, by the way, it can be quite frustrating because all of a sudden there is an end. So like say that you copy some text from outside of this CLI, and if in the text there is a carriage return, what it'll happen is once you paste it, it'll do a partial, request of what you actually wanted to do. It won't include all the text that you wanted to include. And it can be quite frustrating when that happens if you don't know that you can do this.
Yeah. And the thing is that in different tools, the same concept. So Claude is also available as a VS Code plugin, and there it's not shift enter, there it's control enter. So because I use both interchangeably, now for last 3 months, I've shifted only to, I've actually shifted to this model that I have the project open here so that I can review code in the top, and I have this terminals running at the bottom where all my chat is. This has worked beautifully for me. I'm not asking everybody to follow me, but I just wanted to project the way I use it. Okay, so I gave that prompt and it did something and it made this plan. So this plan now has 6 phases. Let's see. So a plan.md just got generated for us. I had opened it. Yeah, here. Okay, so React front-end plan, it says it created 6 phases of development. First is project setup and API client. We have a REST API. He's proposing let's make a wrapper around that, which will be a good gateway, right? So then this says initialize this, configure this, create these files, these functions, and share these types so that you can do import. And then says testable. For this API, there can be unit tests. We have mocked fetch calls. Phase 2, note list display. Show all notes on the main page. So in the second phase, it will do this. Deliverables are a note list React component, a note card component. We want to say when the things are being fetched, it has loading indicator, an error state, again testable. Then phase 3, create node. Then phase 4, edit node. Phase 5, delete node. Filtering and search. Okay. Each phase builds on a previous one, complete them. So it did this thinking that if you implement it in this order, it will be testable, because it brought up the list display first, because you can just fake add few nodes so that you can view the list. Then it added the ability to create list through UI, edit list. So it is doing that thinking for you. This is a small project, so I cannot show much back and forth. Thankfully, I mean, I could have used a cheaper model to show that back and forth is possible, but I didn't want to do that. Yeah, okay. Okay, so we are here. It drafted. We saw the draft. Now let's just role play and say we push back. Okay. So even though these 6 steps make sense to us, let's say this is too complex for a workshop demo. Let's keep it simple. Use React hooks. Don't use a state management library. Start with the simplest possible components. What is the absolute minimum for phase 1? So I'm just showing that you can have scoping argument with Claude or with your AI. This talk basic workshop is not about Claude. It's about generic. So I said this is too complex. Let's keep it simple. This is your right. Should be just enough to prove the front end talks to backend. Scaffold the React app. One component that fetches nodes. So it now rewrote the plan. Okay, so now it said instead of 6, I have just 3 phases. In first one, I'll display nodes. In second, I'll create nodes. In third, I'll say edit and delete. And it's just bare minimum. Uses white. Proxy config, single component that proves end-to-end connectivity, no abstraction layers, no separate components. I'm not saying you should always do that, but many times you'll see plans which has 20 steps, and you will also see some total noise which is unrelated. I'm trying to drive a point that you should push back to get it right. Now, you would ask me what is right. I don't know. What is right is specific to your project. Okay. So we just negotiated. Now let's see, in doing this second phase, let's just mimic that it has no error states. So let's say, so we did this prompt. Now I'm going to negotiate what about error states? How should we handle loading? See what he says. It says both are already in the plan, phase 1 explicitly, but I agree plan could be more specific about this. So I'm just saying I'm not sure where the states are. So what it did is it added explicitly into the plan this sentence: loading state, show loading nodes text while fetch is in flight. Error state, show failed to load nodes. So, and this is also a message to young developers that this is the type of things that we forget. And if you research on internet, you'll find vibe coding has this biggest problem that you forget whatever agent has also forgotten. And it's important to just keep grounding it back to what is really required. Okay, so now let's say we are satisfied. So we go back here, lab 2. Okay, so this, I mean, this thing is not required because anyhow it has updated that plan, but we can still continue to role play. So it says the same thing. I've already done it. It is saved after each edit. It's made up to date with simplified plan, blah, blah. Okay, so as an output of this lab, we have plan.md exists. Plan is phased. It has 2 phases, 3 phases. Each phase has clear deliverables. Plan is simple. So let's see whether we can make that clear. So in phase 1, it will scaffold the React app and show nodes from backend on screen. It will do this. It will show a loading state and this, and then both are managed through use states. The test for us, the human verification would be that the app now renders nodes The app actually does not exist so far, but once we are done with phase one. So think of this mental model. Phase one has a goal and deliverables and a way to verify them. Phase two has a goal and deliverables and a way to verify them. And same. Having this approach gives you a ability that you can pause at this and say, no, this is not going in the right direction. Or you can stop here and say, you can say, okay, pause this plan. Now let's rework the plan because this is not what I want. If you don't do this, what happens is in doing this, it will go in one direction. In doing this, it'll go in tangential direction, more tangential direction. And you started with a note taker, it'll end up being something that you cannot even identify. So this is my core message, that make sure you use phase development and make sure you insert verify, even if that way. So I'm not covering here. In the past version of basic, I covered like I have figured out this pattern that, and I have convinced all other senior developers also to follow the same pattern, that while you're developing this code, you should use the agent itself to develop the integration test. Because after some days of development, this becomes very irritating to take a pause and then manually test something. Instead, if we develop integration tests, and I mean, I have some very good ideas that as you're making progress, you can offload a lot of that testing work to the integration test. But this integration test is not something that QA can develop. This is your evolving test. This has to bring up a browser. Let's say bring up Blue Sky front end. In QA, click on 4 buttons, or in localhost 3000. You do that like a fit harness. You're checking that while I'm developing, it is still doing what it is supposed to do at a literally 30-minute cycle or a 50-minute cycle. It's not a 1-day cycle.
Kel, what you're alluding to here is the review exhaustion type scenario where you get exhausted of having to
Yes.
test things, review things.
Yeah.
Another question I have is, so for IDEs like anti-gravity, for instance, they have this browser preview where the testing process can actually launch the browser and have drive it and be able to.
Yeah.
It's
But
slow, but
yeah.
yeah.
But what I've realized is that even that irritates me. So instead
Yeah.
of that, I tend to use faceless browsers, like headless
Yeah.
browsers, because what I do is for all the walks that it is doing, I make it take screenshots as a evidence, like,
Mm-hmm.
do this, and on every screen transition, take a screenshot. So that then I can just, I take my dinner, whatever, I come back and I just scan through images to
Mm-hmm.
convince myself that it is actually doing what it is supposed to do. And this is
Gotcha.
this is for the web case. I mean, I also work on C++, right? For the other examples, I make it write logs. And then what I do is I use another Claude instance to analyze the log to prove to me that what I wanted it to do was actually done.
So it's sort of like an adversarial type of setup.
Exactly. Adversarial is the right word. That the win in this technology can only be made if you develop a counterbalance. You
Yeah.
let one agent build and another agent almost simultaneously constantly verify what this agent is doing and give feedback. You unless you Even while developing this PowerPoint, right? This slideshow is not my work. I developed it
Yeah.
using Claude, and I had a feedback loop. I have this my browser snapshot taker. I only gave prompts. I want a slide on plan. I need a slide on onboard. And what my tooling does is it'll generate the slide, take a screenshot, push it back to Claude to say, look at this thing and analyze it for finesse, make sure fonts are visible, make sure there are not too many columns on the screen. So, right. So not only
Yeah.
messaging, styling, content, so this unending loop of generate with one hand, test with another hand, just keep doing that.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you make a what's the word? I'm running on fumes over here. Do you make a distinction between two agents versus a single agent with multiple personalities?
Very, very good point. The reason I use more than one agents is because of the context rot problem. If I go back to, so
Okay.
if I do the same thing in this context, right?
Mm-hmm.
The problem is this context already knows a lot about the development. So
Yeah.
it's actually blindsided in its review. It thinks that, it's living in a universe where everything is good.
Mm-hmm.
So you bring another guy who has no idea about what was discussed. It just knows the end goal. It just knows
I
the
see.
requirement and the end goal.
So you're isolating them
Yes.
essentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, I'm not, because I didn't want to confuse in this. I do this for code review also, pull request also, for log review also.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we saw this planning activity. We have so far developed Claude.md. We have developed plan.md in that project. And now let's go to execute. So what is execute? Execute is like telling this guy to go build it. Now we have a plan. You build it and we can watch. Now, so first of all, look at my meme. So this is the thing, right? We asked the dog to stay on the couch, and what he did is, he did all that, right? And you told me to stay there. I stayed there. You didn't tell me that I cannot spoil the pillow, right?
Well,
So that's what happens because the point I want to drive home is typically these execute phases is a phase where a human developer cannot keep their eyes on because it's running at rocket speed, right? It's just screen is just, it's creating one file, two file, three file. Within the file, it's adding function one, function two, function three. We cannot just watch this movie and figure out what is wrong, right? So these are typically long phases of constant code generation. And you literally have I mean, sometimes you see something bad, you hit escape and you stop it. But I think that only gives you more blood pressure and nothing else, right? So what is needed is guardrails that you try to basically give extra rules, guardrails to the pot that you're not allowed. This is not negotiable. You cannot do this. You cannot bite my pillow. You cannot litter on the floor. You give it enough guardrails. And this is why that enterprise plan conversation is important, is that with the enterprise plan of Claude, guardrails can be shared across the team. What you cannot do. So, Luciano, Vadim, Sean can come up with what nobody should do, and they just hit enter. And the next day, everybody else, Shamal, Disha, Umang, whoever, they will be blocked from doing some. Blocked as in their bots will be nudged to not do those. So I'll give you some examples of guardrails. So branch discipline, okay, something is wrong. Okay, so never code on main/development/. So while it doesn't matter to the blue sky example, but in other projects, its main branch is accessible to many people, right? And they also use Claude. So main or development or some key core valuable branch is accessible to the bot because of that. So the branch discipline is you tell it to always do development on a side branch. It could be a branch off of development. It could be a feature branch. It could be a hotfix branch. It's up to you. But you have to set this common discipline. You have to add this discipline of test integrity. And I have a very personal experience that, in Aparapai's project, there was a test which was very difficult to fix. It was failing and none of us could figure out. And I took the task of fixing it. I gave all my prompts and I went to bed. Next morning, I saw tests are green. And I was very happy that Claude solved it. And then I went through my day and then I came back to that and realized that it solved it by deleting the test. So, out of 290 test cases, one was failing,
yeah.
right? And and I saw the entire conversation. It made 17 different ways of solving it. Finally, it's, what it said? What the heck? It has been failing for 3 months. Nobody fixed it. Why should I? So, and my mistake was in the prompt I wrote, make sure the tests are green. So tests were green when I woke up, I had just 289 test cases. So
Yeah.
that's a good, kind of fable to share about what this guy is going to make sure what you said is done, right? But
Yeah.
it cannot make sure that it is done to your satisfaction. Okay.
Yeah, another thing that I've seen is where it finds an error, and the error, when you actually think about it, was fairly simple to solve, but it just goes into this overcomplicated way of trying to solve it, and it just keeps on going down that rabbit hole. It makes it more and more complicated instead of just stopping for a second and saying, checking back to what was working and then restarting from there on.
Yeah, so I have this concept of stuck protocol that you can actually make it be more
Yeah.
disciplined to say that if you're stuck for 3 attempts, ask human.
Yeah.
You can also add this commit discipline in your feature branch that before going for any risky task, make sure you commit the code. So, and it's very, very important to introduce this git commit habit into the guardrails, because otherwise what happens is you will see everything working, and this dog will spoil the show itself. It itself will delete something working. It'll make something working to not working and will not know how to go back. But if you say within the phase, so if you go back to our plan.md, right, we had small steps. It's okay, totally fine to say after every step commit it. What's wrong? I mean, there's no problem in having too many commits, right? You can always squash them. And I use that approach also to kind of develop a history. So because when it commits, it writes a git commit message in which it tries to describe what was done. And the next iteration of the bot can read those comments to know what was done and what is the logical thinking order of this. So that's another thing. Likewise, there are others, like, and unless I come to what Luciano brought up, YOLO, some of them will not be important. So message that I want everybody to take is that the agent will optimize your success criteria. If you say all tests pass, it will meet the goal. But even if it includes, and these guardrails are the ways to kind of avoid them. Where do the guardrails go? They go in Claude.md only. They can also go in plan.md, but they have to, the guardrails have to stay in the conversation context for it to follow them. If they keep going out of the context, then it'll wither out. Okay. All right, so now what we're going to do is lab 3 quickly. In this, agent will implement the React component and API integration. I don't know whether we'll get to do course correction, but I can try doing something. It'll commit at stable points. Then you'll be able to open the browser and see something. It won't be great though. So let's see. We should go to lab 3. Let the agent build a basic React component. Okay. So first step is, before execution, establish boundaries. Before we start building, a few rules. Work on a feature branch called front end, because I'm worried that it might spoil my working backend because that code is available to it. Commit at meaningful milestones, right? For example, after this, don't delete or modify existing backend code or tests. If you hit an error, stop and ask me. So this, so it reacted by saying, okay, I understood. Let me create a branch for you. So it's asking me, is it okay to do Git? I'll say yes. And the CD this, Git checkout that. And I want everybody to register that you will see extreme success with Git with the bot. So I don't do any merges, any squashes, any rebase, any stashes. I don't do any of them using neither the GUI tools nor source tree. I just use agent only to just verbally say what I want to do, and 100% time it works. Somehow they have figured out the Git really beautifully. So what did it do? It's now shifted to the front end branch. It's a feature branch. And then it says, I'll remember these rules. So in this case, these rules are just in the conversation context. They have not gone into any file. Okay, the next thing is now start execution with a clear prompt. So we set some guardrails. Now we're saying start execution. So let's implement phase one. Phase one is create React frontend that runs on this, fetches this, follow. I mean, I'm saying this just to make this thing interesting. I could have just said implement phase one from plan.md. It will still work. It will still work. Just the first line will work because the problem is too small. So now what we should expect is it's right now in work and it's going to ask me these questions. It says, should I run this bash command? So it says npm create frontend because it's going to create a new Node.js project. So I'm going to say, don't ask again, even though I know this thing won't come again. Now, Lucy had asked this question, which I thought I'll answer, that every time I say, don't do this, don't ask me again, what happens is here, you see this file, Lucy, .clot settings. I just said allow, and it said bash npm create is forever allowed in this session. Now, if as a project we decide to commit this, then every other developer can also do this. They won't be asked for this question. The next question has come. Am I allowed to run npm install? I'll say yes, because that's needed. This thing needs some. The following packages were not found and they'll be installed. So because we said use white, so saying use create white. So this build will take time. Are there any quick questions or comments? I haven't heard anything from the India side. Madhav or anybody else has any questions so far?
Well, where's Madhav? I don't see him on here.
He's hidden in the. So before he joined, I explained that I'm running this talk both through Teams for Blue Box people and through Meet for Opera people. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah,
Hi,
Madhav.
Madhav. Oh, I see. So you're hearing people from both ends then.
Okay, so this was going on. Now let me check the scaffolding. So if we go to the plan, the first phase required developing the scaffolding. So it wrote this white config.ts. I said port 3001, so it added that. Okay, it keeps hitting into some errors because probably this file didn't exist, or I don't even care. Finally, it wrote it. It took this file. You can see a diff here, like some imports were removed, some imports were added. It's doing whatever it's doing. Okay. Because we said that we don't need CSS, so it removed boilerplate CSS that white generated. And now let's add some tests. I'll install testing dependency. So it went ahead and configured the project for testing for jest-based tests. And then it wrote some test setup. It wrote the test for application, and then it also ran the tests. Now, when it started running tests, that's what it realized that we are in nanny mode. So in nanny mode, I have to say, yes, go ahead. And again, I just added these three, right? Every time I say yes, it says it's okay to use bash to run npm create. It's okay to use, and you can. This way, you're just building a kind of a cache of things which are safe to do. But by now, everybody would have realized that if we just keep saying yes, do every time, it might even ask, shall I do format on C:/? And I'll say yes, do every time, or I'll say yes. So the problem of nanny mode is that if it asks too many questions, you will keep tapping to say yes, yes, yes. And one of those times you will say yes for delete star or rm minus rf something, or because this is finally this guy is a fool. It's a bot, right? It might try to do something. without knowing that it has a very serious consequence. It has happened with me. Like I've seen early versions of this switch branch to do something. It goes to read Git history, then it figures out something is done on other branch, and it says, let me switch to that branch to bring that code. And by that time, context runs out. And then when I come back, I don't even understand why it is on that branch. You saying something, Lucy?
No, I'm muted.
Okay. Somebody was saying. Mhm. Yeah. Everything that I have in this presentation works as it is in Gemini. It works as it is in Cursor. Just the file names are different. So I realized that just to make this PowerPoint simple, I have removed those. The previous one was very complicated. It had like a whole table of what is it called in Claude, what is it called in Gemini. And I thought that's just information overload, but I can share that with you. You may have already seen it. So each concept that I'm saying, I have personally checked that it exists in Gemini, Cursor, and one more, I forget which one. I think the Copilot agent or whatever that is, the Copilot has an agentic edition, right? So this is the same thing, that each of them will have an auto-exe.bat, something which bootstraps. So Claude.md, Gemini.md, right? The model is you land into the auto-exe.bat, and from there you say now read.planmd or now read those rules. Okay, so what's happening here is, so it just tried to run the tests, and then it says, oh, it's just asking me whether Git status is allowed. I'll say yes. So it's now trying to stage all this for commit, because we had said keep committing. So interesting thing would be to go to the repo view and see what's happening. So I have set it up for commit, but not for push, because I didn't want to kind of spoil my. So you see that one new commit came here, which had all these changes. Okay, now it's done. Phase one is done. Here is what was built. Front end with this test result 5.5 ready for phase two. So let's go back to our thing here and let's see what does it say. So we saw the agent work. It created a React app, likely using White, set up an API integration, create. I don't know whether it did that or not. We'll come to know. Handle loading. I don't know. But we did see it commit at the milestones, right? Now, let's just do role play, right? If the agent starts adding things, that's all. I'll just fakely say this. So it says no, phase one has no routing. Commit only contains a single app component that fetches display nodes, works as planned, no router was added, ready to move to phase two. I'm not going to move to phase two yet. Okay. So now it finished it. So we'll say, great, run npm start and verify the app works, then commit with a message. It's already committed. So if it finds some, so yeah, this is also interesting that in this phase, it might find some problems and fix them. And because of that, it may have to recommit. So I have npm start already running somewhere. Let's see. Oh, sorry. This is for the front end. So it's first running the tests. and then it should run npm start. Yeah. Best way is slicing. That's a slide I have. Best way is slicing. So you have, so your data sheet, right? Let's say your board design document, you'll have to slice it to say in one session, give it 20 important parts of this. Or you can make it read the table of content to figure out what are the important parts. And you just say, read page 4, 14, 17, and 19 and skip others. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, we can see, but I have had some success by slicing things into smaller chunks, and you do the job of kind of focusing it. That is the common thing. But especially in written text, if the text is not extractable, if it is in images, then most of these tools struggle. Okay, so what I thought quickly is that this guy is done, and instead of him doing it, we can do the triad. So my backend is already running. I'm going to run the front end. So front end requires me to be in the front end folder. And then I have to say npm start. Start dev, I think. No. Run dev. Yeah. Sorry. Who was that? Who just said? Satwik. Thank you, Satwik. Okay. So we have front end and back end both running. So this is the old back end which was running. This is the old front end which was running. Now what should happen is if I access this, so far we don't know what has been developed, right? It says here no nodes yet. So because there are no nodes, the API which fetches list gets nothing. Now you may not be satisfied from this. So what you would do is, actually I'm creeping into the next, but we can do that maybe just for fun's sake. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some note so that we can see. So just see what I'm doing. I mean, I'm skipping lab 4 quickly. We just ran the front end. There's the phase 1 done, which is supposed to show a list because list is empty. We already saw that empty bracket. So this time just text. Now to convince myself that it is working, I'm going to add a note, which is test node. This is a test and it has test. Right? Okay. This was working. Oh, okay. Let's see. Do we do this? No, it'll happen. It'll happen through this. It'll happen. So I pasted it on the command prompt. This backslash. It's a minor thing. So that API call was made through curl. Post this, and it returned an ID. And now let's refresh that web page. So it got notes, test node, this is a test. So these are the three details. We have not, if you go back to the plan, the styling and all that comes much later. So it's just saying that it's able to fetch it and it's able to pass it to the front end. Okay. We could have, from here, you can say, oh, this looks ugly. Can you style it better? And it'll work. But you remember we removed all CSS just to keep it simple. Okay. So any questions so far? We saw it, like we didn't write the code, but we got this whole unit test development and end-to-end working with a very ugly looking something, but that's what comes next.
Suppose you don't like the output. What do you do?
Yeah, you just go.
I mean, not in terms of styling, but it does something completely different from what you asked it. It needs to basically redo the whole thing. What do you do?
No, you go there and contradict it. You say, you write in words what you did not find. So you can say, I can try.
You can do it at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
This looks very ugly. Let's say I ran the web page.
No, okay. I'm not saying it looks ugly. Let's say it
looks wrong.
Yeah. It just showed you like red circle instead of showing you note. So it's completely wacky. So what do? You need to ask it to redo it again. You can do it right here.
No,
right
now? I would say, so most of the time my experience has been whenever I get some rogue output, I go back, then it tries to question itself, then says, okay, I can't figure out. Can you tell me what you're seeing? So what I do, I mean, in the web example, I just open snip, I snip that image and dump it on him. This thing allows copy pasting images.
Okay, understood. Right, thanks.
So, I mean, you just have to do Control-C, Control-V into this command prompt. The image will come here, and then it'll think through this as, oh, I rendered it in the middle of the page. I should have rendered it at the top of the page, and it'll fix that.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so I'll skip this prompt for now. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Yep. I mean, it wrote in the, so it's for you, it's similar to you gave it to Satvik and he developed something. So you can read the test case, it's there. So it used Jest to write test cases. So if you see, this is the runtime code, this is the test for it. Right. And you can see it has followed a pattern. We may not like it, right? It has put the test inside SRC. I don't like it. And very good kind of aha moment for all of us to see that this is a thing which belongs to the guardrails. We can go back to Claude.md and say, never do this. Put my test cases only inside the test folder and nowhere else. And it'll say, oh, is it? Do you want me to fix it? And it'll fix it. And then it'll rerun all the tests. Did everybody follow that, or was I too quick in that? Good catch. Let me move the test and update the config. The thing is, it will do whole 9 yards. It will fix absolutely everywhere, including running the tests. If tests fail, it will fix. It'll keep doing this refactoring till the time it's actually done. Okay, front end test, go in front end / test, not in front end / SRC. It made this rule in the, so this is so I mean, it's good that we ran into this situation. Everybody has to understand that guardrails have to be invented in every session of development. There cannot be a world that me, Sean, Vadim, we decide guardrails and they'll work. Every project will face some new situations. It's possible that after a few months, we may stop getting new kind of conventions to be added, but it's important. So all 5 tests pass. Now things are moved. If I go back here, rules, front end, source, tests. So those are the tests, those are the real. You can read the tests here. Before each, restore all mocks, show loading state initially, renders nodes from the API. So this thing is also important to see that these test cases actually mean nothing right now, right? Because we are not seeing any action. So what do? You actually go try to at least put your eyes into what it is developing. Okay. Let's go back. I wanted to discuss this important thing. So we just saw, right? It has 21 test cases of backend, 5 test cases of front end. But I've seen that for the most part, that is not enough. And I think I'm repeating what I said, that you have to insert yourself into the testing or verification loop for 2 reasons. One is that I'm not convinced that something just saying I ran 21 test cases is enough for me to deliver a product. Even to give it to QA, it's not enough in my mind because I have not seen proof. So that's why I say this. I'm responsible for whom my dog barks at. So if this code is doing something wrong or something bad, I'm responsible. In this new brave world of agentic AI, we cannot say, not my fault, Claude did it. Or we cannot say, Pat, you asked us to develop it with Claude. Now Claude is making mistakes. It's not my fault, right? That's very important, right? We all will have to agree that this is just a smarter keyboard which is typing very fast for you. Normally you type at 30 words per minute, it's typing at 30,000 words per minute. But yet what you commit to Git or what you raise in pull request is still a work product which only goes to you. So if this dog barks at somebody, it's your dog. You have to be responsible. You cannot say that it's not my fault, it is dog's fault. Okay, so that's one reason. I mean, I said 2 reasons. First is I have to own this. And second is I'm myself not convinced whether it is doing something or not. So this, you would have seen me, right? I mean, Madhav, you know me even from much before. For years and years and years, I was saying unit test, unit test, unit test, unit test, unit test, right? Okay, TDD. But now I am at a point where I feel unit tests are there or not there in this world, in this agentic world. I don't care. What I care is whether integration tests are there or not there. Because those integration tests are, like completely different example in the video jockey project where I'm running a video pipeline to do rewind and forward. I developed a whole sequence of integration tests to make sure that while I'm developing aggressively with agentic AI, I'm not breaking something else, right? And I'm not talking about regression. I'm talking about in progress. So I go from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3. I'm not yet given to QA, so they cannot do regression. But what I do in phase 2 should not break phase 1. And I build this scaffolding by writing. I mean, I shouldn't say I write. I make the bot write an integration test suite, which basically says you have grabbed this much land. Now you will not go back. In the space of requirements, you have covered 40%. This 40% will keep getting tested every time you make a new phase. You exit the phase by completing more integration tests. And these days I'm pushing more on that because what has happened now is unit test is just a transformation of the plan that I wrote. So it's not something great. It exists, it is useful. I'm not saying don't do it. Since you are not writing it, your focus is less on that. Your focus should be more on getting integration tests right. Okay, so that's why I have this meme which says all the tests that I wrote pass 100%, but actually it's doing something nasty. And it is trying to show that when you give this autonomy, he's holding his own leash. So it's free to do whatever it wants to do. Okay, I think we have already done this lab. And I have also this other one, which is good thing I was watching, that by doing these verifications, you have to keep a watch on where this thing is going. In this case, it was about to kind of do some nasty thing on the patio. So I quickly skim through left 4 to see whether I missed something. We have already seen this run. You can run it yourself. We already see every test is passing. We already opened in the browser. I already added a note. I refresh the front end. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, one last thing I wanted to pass on in this topic is, yeah, this prompt is also very useful, that these tests are very shallow, or sometimes I say you have too many tests, rationalize your tests. So what it does is it goes across all the tests and removes tests which are just repetitive, because end of the day, they'll burn your CI build. Okay, so all the 4 labs are done. We are at 15 minutes left.
What about that progress.md? I understand why to create it, but how you use it in for the next phase.
Good that you very thank you for reminding that. I was almost skipping over that thing. So let's do that, and then we can discuss. Okay. So this is a way. So remember, we made a plan, right? In this plan, it says do phase 1. Now, what if I hit, let's say my laptop gets rebooted or nothing has been remembered. So the next instance of this bot will think that phase 1 needs to be done. It may do it, or it may be smart to read code and say it's already done. But the right way to proceed is to say this, which is let's read this prompt so that we can create a progress.md file that summarizes what we built in phase 1, what components were created, what API, what tests, what is working and what is not done yet. So the advantage of this is the moment you put this mark, you have made this Git repo remember what your progress is. So now when you launch the second, and we'll do that also.
So will it pick it up automatically?
You have to just write one line in claude.md that read progress.md before doing anything. Yeah.
What about checking out the last commit, or looking at the last commit? Maybe
Claude does it most of the time. So whenever it
Okay,
launches
okay.
into it, it does it. It'll do it.
Yeah.
So that sentence is not here, but we can add it here. So we can say, oh, I had rules. So that is code convention, right? Okay, so it created a progress.md that we can glance over, and then I'll make it forget everything. Okay, so it says progress is in phase 1. We have done this. Components are done. This API is done. These tests are done. This is not done. I'm going to say, so right now it knows a lot, right? I'm going to say /clear. So /clear is we are back to the, I can even do /exit. Okay, so now I'm out of that loop. Claude Anthropic has forgotten everything about this. What is remembered is what changed. So we developed some code, we developed this file, we developed this progress.md. Now let's look at a world where these files did not exist. If they did not exist, the next bot which starts will have to again go through all the code base and figure out what is done and what is the current reconciliation. And your context will rot in just figuring that out. Instead of that, we have a plan and we have a progress against that plan. Okay, so you see, it read two files. It has read plan.md, progress.md, and it's already doing a git log of last 10 entries. And then it'll just lay it out for me. Okay. Here is the project status. Branch is front end. Phase 1 setup this complete. This is done. Remaining work from plan.md. It found that these files are not committed because we are working. Okay. I don't think I have anything else, but I have a few important slides. Yeah, okay. We'll go back to the slide. No more labs. So let's come out of that. Now, back to your original question, right? Somebody asked. One big problem is context is finite. So what do? You separate your concerns. In the slide 4, I had said that this builds up, and because of that, context is gone, or you will come to a limit and you compress it, and because of that, you lose things. And that, I think, in itself is a problem. So how do you solve that problem? So I have 3 different patterns for this. Very simple: by layer, by role, and by phase. You can take a problem, slice it into layers, make one, I don't want to say one bot, but one instance do the front end, another instance do the back end, another instance do the tests, and make sure, this is the critical part, that before doing front end and back end and tests, you do a session of developing interfaces so that the front end developer and the back end developer and the test writer lock in at the interface. So this way, you have taken the big problem, because this was a toy project. In a real problem, you'll have much bigger context requirement. So you slice it 3 ways. There are other ways possible. Like, for example, you can take the entire DevOps piece out of this, because we didn't do it in this, but in a regular project, you'll also have the task of setting up a GitHub workflow or a Azure DevOps pipeline or a Bitbucket pipeline. So you separate by, I kind of mixed it up. The second is what I just said, by role. So depending on the problem, you can say you are only the developer, you're only the tester, you're only the DevOps person. And that way you restrict the amount of knowledge that the context can accumulate, right? So by layer or by role. And the last one is by phase, which applies everywhere. That always, irrespective of where you are, do not try to do these onboarding, planning, execution, and verify activities in one compressed go. Finish onboarding and say /clear. So you do, because when you do onboarding, you have consumed a lot of, actually, I should show this also. It'll be handy for everybody. So we just reset this, right? I'm sorry, I lost it. I could have shown you this. So this is showing me how the context is being visualized. So you can just say that I have this many spots available, this rectangular grid or 10 by 10 grid. Out of them, this much is in use, this much context is free, and this is inaccessible because that is what is used for compaction. This picture makes you realize that as we keep working, more and more of this will keep getting full. Once it starts reaching somewhere here, it'll say, I'm ready for compaction. I'm only 5% to compaction, 2% to compaction, and then suddenly compact, and then it's 2 minutes it spends to take all the conversation and compacts it into a form that it can fit in the top 30% of this, right? So to avoid that, what do? You do onboard, clear, so that you're back to empty. Then you do plan, clear, empty. Then you do a phase, clear. So you keep clearing the context so that you have more thinking ability available. And this is very, very important, that you should have the clear mindset, because that is the best way to, even for humans, that's a very good way to remain sane, right? You do something, commit it and forget it. The next day, ask your boss, what should I do today? They'll say, okay, you did that yesterday. No, I don't remember what you said. tell me what I'm supposed to do today. Okay, so refer Git and do the next task. So you do that throughout the day. At the end of the day, you commit it and you forget it. So if you keep that clear mindset, you will realize that the 200,000 token budget is a lot for you. But if you do the opposite, that you keep working in the same context for days or weeks, you will struggle. This is just a bot. Every time it hits the limit, it'll do compaction. And you will think, wow, I have more space, but you'll realize that it's answering your questions wrong. So remember that you don't lose progress when you do /clear, you lose noise. And you can only confidently do /clear if your loop makes it commit regularly and write markdown files regularly. If you do not make the bot convert or crystallize or distillize this knowledge into markdown files, it will forget every time you do clear. So I want everybody's reaction to this. Does it make sense, or am I just pushing too hard on this? Okay, I see. Abhiram, you want to say something? Okay. All right. So I already said this: state files survive when context doesn't. We discussed these three essential files: Claude.md. It has project instructions and conventions. Plan.md, what is built and how. And progress.md, what was accomplished. So this is the purpose: when to update, whenever you have new convention. So we just found bot is making a mistake that is writing test in the source folder. You immediately go and fix it. Good example. You may have 50 other examples of the same, of similar type. You get into a new discussion with your stakeholders, and that's when you update the plan. And whenever you're satisfied with what was done, you ask it to update progress, because it's like, okay, we have moved on, this part of the work is done. These files that I'm just talking about, these three files, they outlast any conversation. You can do /clear. New session will always read them and pick it where you left off. This is the key. I mean, at least at the basic workshop level, this is the key to being successful with any agentic AI. Okay. So everybody saw me answer yes to the questions that the bot was asking, right? So that is the nanny mode. Okay. The tool itself can support a whole spectrum of things. So it can do the nanny mode on one end, and it can do YOLO on the other. YOLO is you only live once. So you open it up to say, do everything. You can do everything, whatever you want to do, including deleting my family's pictures and posting to Facebook some obscenity in my behalf. You can do literally anything. That is YOLO mode. If you ask me, as a systems architect, it worries me a lot that in YOLO mode you're allowing somebody to run code on your computer, right? Since it is totally free, it can do some search and say, oh, this GitHub looks very interesting. This will be very useful. Let me clone it. Let me build it. Let me run it. And little did you know that what you downloaded was actually a worm. Little did you know that it was supposed to be malicious software. It will take a long time for us to be able to build guardrails which will stop, which will say, don't download anything which has less than this many stars, or do a CV search on this. We might build all of those, but it'll take us too long to build that. So one end, it asks every question and you say yes. And in saying yes multiple times, you may say yes to some wrong things. On the other end, you give it full freedom to do anything on your computer, and you may burn, like, you may have 90 days of nirvana and then 1 day of fury. That one day you'll say, what happened? It force pushed the empty repository to my Git. Now what do I do? Okay, so these are, and in between there is allow listed, which means out of the nanny mode, you choose some commands and you say, okay, only these will run, not others. That's one. While you are in YOLO mode, you can say you can do everything except this. So it's like whitelist versus blacklist. I request everybody to graduate from top to bottom. Don't directly jump into the bottom, because actual real production projects are at risk, right? I think in the SID call I had said, in Blue Sky Git, we have important passwords committed. If this bot goes crazy, it'll say, let me query this. It'll pick up, I see a connection string. Can I run it? Can I see what records are there? Oh, this table has too many. So person table has too many records. Can I delete some? Can I empty this table? Can I drop this table? I'm just trying to create fear psychosis here to make sure that people don't use the YOLO mode, or in Claude it is called dangerously skip all permissions. So those things should only be done after you have experienced this, understood the pitfalls, figured out how to add deny lists. Only then. So first day, it's okay to be in nanny mode and say yes to a few prompts. Next day, you can say yes, don't do it again. You will learn it. You will get into a phase where you see what typically fails. And then there'll be a day when you'll say, let me use the dangerous mode, but I'll build some guardrails to stop bad things from happening. Okay, so in the YOLO mode, risk is very high. Reward is maximum, obviously, because you're not being prompted. It keeps going, but don't start there. There is this fourth thing called sandbox mode. Everybody would have seen the Claude co-work announcement, or many of these agentic AIs are now coming with this sandboxed approach, where the bot doesn't have access to your computer, but it mounts a part of your file system and it only works there. So at least the stories that I built up about deleting family pictures and all of that doesn't happen, right? But it can happen. Just don't assume that it won't happen.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Lucy, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that, one of the things that you could do is, did you talk about skills yet? Because I had to step out for a little bit.
No. Skills is in the next. It's not even in this show. It's in the
Oh, I
next.
see. Because one of the things that you can do, I guess I won't even talk about it. There's no point. We'll talk about it in the
Yeah.
next
Because
session.
people
Yeah, I
are
don't
at
want to
different.
confuse anyone. Yeah.
Okay, so I ran specifically in supervised mode just because I want everybody to experience that first. And once you understand what branch discipline means, once you see agents patterns, once you have things which can catch problems, only then graduate up from there. So
Yeah.
on your autonomy.
Yeah. Yep.
And always remember that this has terminal access, and you are allowing it to run any bash commands. It can install any package, it can run any script, it can make any network call. And it is a real problem. It has happened in front of my eyes that it will do something so wacky that, like, it'll say, I'm trying, it's not working, let me do a push force. And you all know, if you do push force, then you can end up deleting some branches.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is some thinking. It's not comprehensive, because my purpose of this call is not to, is to sensitize and not actually solve it. But typical things to watch out for is branch discipline. Agent can't delete tests, commit before risk, commit discipline. Have stuck protocol doesn't cost anything. I mean, it costs money primarily, because in a loop it's just wasting your tokens, right? There's also a nice idea to say /clear and now review the code which is changed. So all of them are good safety nets. Without guardrails, you may delete, you may install some packages that you don't want, it may override some manual changes. Okay, so I'm almost done with the material, and then I have some reflection slides which I want to quickly catch up. I think I had set it up by saying that at the end of it, I'll try to discuss where it lands all of us. So some
This
of
is
you would have
beautiful.
read it.
Yeah, the self-assessment is what I call the self-assessment. article.
You all would have read it in the blog that I wrote in December.
Yeah.
It's a thought process. So I look at, if you look at the left graph, on the x-axis you have skill, on the y-axis you have productivity. So people have various levels of skill, and people have various levels of productivity. There's this dotted line which is saying 1 for 1. Skill 1, productivity 1. It's all imaginative. Okay, there's no real data behind it. The way I think of it is productivity is equal to skill to the power of AI exponent. So think of this imaginary number as AI exponent. Without AI, that number is 1. So if you don't use any agentic AI, that number is just 1. You don't want to know about it. You have been a good developer. You don't need this gain. So you are on this line, right?
Mm-hmm.
AI is like you take your skill. Let's say your skill is not 1, but you are advanced. You are 1.5. You are better than the average, right? Now you apply any exponent on top of that, you will get better results. So it's giving you that speed, right? Okay. Now let's say you are less than average, like you are an early career, somebody who's still building the skill. So you are here, you're 0.9 or 0.8. Now try applying an exponent of 2 or 1.5. You'll actually fall below on the productivity. That's a very interesting insight that when we work through this fast-paced development, it throws some options back at us. Some of us, because I'm not saying that because I have better DNA or something. It's just that I have seen those patterns enough times that I can say this is wrong or this is right,
Mm-hmm.
or what
Yeah.
right looks like, right? And we all have, all the people who have kind of done this for 20 years or 15 to 20, more than 15 years would be able to spot a black sheep in that. You'll say, oh, this is BS. You can never do it this way. Don't do it. But
Yeah.
somebody who has never written that type of code, for it, two bad things may look equally correct, right? And
Yeah.
funny thing is that whenever this thing gives you an option, it also says, I recommend this, right? They're doing a good job, by the way, with the recommendations. They say there are 4 ways of doing this, and I recommend option B. And it also gives, most of the time in my prompting, I question the option. Prove to me, you're saying it is good. Prove to me why it is good, at least. Give me a reason or compare it. So the people who have less skill should at least start questioning the decisions that this bot is taking for them as a means of learning. Then only you will migrate from here to here, right? Otherwise, what happens is you will see a Brownian motion that your skill is less, you don't know it. It gave you something bad, you tried it, which generated something bad, because of which you're now stuck in a loop. You're producing slower than what you should.
Yeah.
Okay. And yeah.
Yeah. Well, the moral that I wanted to share is that, this agent or this technology will not turn you into something that you're not. It will just magnify what you already are.
Yeah. So now you would question, what is AI exponent then? So this is a function of your technique, like how you hone this skill, how you improve it, and also the tool set. Like the tool set that you use, sometimes it brings you the exponent of 2 or exponent of 4 or 5 or whatever. It's not a multiplier, it's an exponent. Just remember that. And this is my own hallucination. It may be all wrong, but I have modeled it this way as a hypothesis. Okay. So that's one thought that I wanted everybody to register. The second thought is, now I have another graph. On the x-axis, I have the development experience, novice to expert. And on the y-axis, I have skepticism to AI. This is highly skeptic. This is highly convinced. So from today's talk, you would have seen that I am highly convinced, right? Or forget me, Pat is highly convinced, right? So very high conviction, very low conviction, very low experience, very high experience. So this is the classic, what is that? Boston Consulting 2x2 matrix, right? Now just look at what happens at the cross. So let's first look at a novice with skepticism. So this is like fear of missing out. You're just experiencing it, you don't know it, and you're skeptical. You won't make any progress. You'll move like a slug. Okay. You are a novice, but you have high conviction in AI. that will do something for you. You live in this poop zone, hallucination zone. You are confidently producing garbage. Okay. You think that whatever Gemini said or Claude said is right, and you gave it to your QA or your boss or your supervisor, and they claim it to be. So this was about novice with skepticism, novice with conviction. Now let's see. You are an expert in your technique, but you have skepticism. I think I don't have to say there is enough YouTube videos and news stories which are saying that that is the ostrich syndrome. This is head in the sand. If you don't catch up to this, this wave will knock you out. So it's your choice. You can stay here, but it's very clear that this AI will eat all our jobs. Okay. If we don't start using it. If you are here, that means you have good skill and you also have high conviction. Then you are in this multiplier zone, which is the sweet spot because you have a good number of years of experience. You can call out the bluffs very easily. Now I give you this exponent and you will be here. You'll be producing very fast. You will be course correcting. And because expertise plus conviction is force multiplier. I'm not I did not name call anybody to be a skeptic or convinced. I did not name call anybody to be a novice or expert, but I want people to register that the only way to migrate from here to here. So let's say you are here. Both these arrows show going from left to right. Okay. So whether you have conviction or not, you have to first develop the skill and then move up.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is no alternative for deep engineering skill, even in the AI world. Okay. Any comment? Anybody thinks of this as philosophical or?
I think it's great. One other thing that I would offer to anyone that is getting started with this is, there is unfortunately, marketing out there makes things very confusing. So, you see this vibe coding type of approach. And my advice would be don't rush into trying to produce code. Have a long and productive conversation with the agent about the decisions that it's trying to make, about the things that it's proposing, be skeptical, try to refine it, and then which we haven't seen yet because there are tools like Conductor that deal with this kind of stuff, then start producing code. But don't rush into producing code, because then you can fall in a trap.
Right. Yeah. So to summarize, right, what we did today is we tried this. So this very important thing that I wanted to leave everybody was with this OPEV workflow: onboard, plan, execute, verify. Remember these three files in this world, and in the Gemini world, it's gemini.md, and the other two files remain the same. There is a follow-up workshop that I have already done for one set of people. There I'll be covering the concept of context engineering, the concept of skills, how MCP, the model control protocol, fits in, and idea of hooks, the idea of autonomy, where I have three patterns of autonomy. One is called Tesla full self-driving, other is called the Ralph Wiggum loop, other is called the overnight harness. And the 3-hour video that Sean mentioned has all of this. You don't even have to listen to me. You can just go through that video and you will get to know. But here's a request: people who have not experienced it, you have to experience it for at least 2 to 3 weeks aggressively before understanding these concepts. If you flip this equation, these concepts become counterproductive. So my request is follow this advice of just OPEV and Claude plus plan plus progress. Do 2-3 weeks and then see my other video, which is about this advanced concepts. Okay,
Great.
I'm 10 minutes over than my reserved time. If anybody has questions, I can answer.
We don't hear the other side, but I don't know if they have questions. I think it's great. Thank you for doing this, Akel.
Maybe we can poke some people. Umang. Okay. Disha.
I don't have any questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else? Swagat.
Yeah, great session, Akhil. Like, no questions. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, this is all done. I already said it. Your homework is to do 40 hours of real workflow. Try to practice these techniques that I added into this show. Don't just try to do it as a weekend. I'll try it. I have given this whole material. Everything is there. Additionally, I have taken the last basic workshops, because people didn't like it. I converted into a case study for people who want to read. There's a PDF file that you can read through about my experiences doing a very complex work with Claude. And there I've tried to establish that how I got 6x boost in productivity. If you're interested, please read it. In the material, there is a prompt cookbook, which is basically a way to remind you that in this phase of the project, what prompt you should use. And while you're doing that, try to track the time that you saved or lost, the new guardrails that you added, the moments where agents surprised you, and come back with the honest truth. It's possible that this approach may not work for everybody. I'm all ears. In both Opera and Bluebox, we have a channel where these things can be discussed. There is the Agentic AI chat in Bluebox, and we have the 10x scalability chat in Opera. Bring up your doubts and ask your questions. I'll be very, very happy on either side to explain things and drive more people to use it more productively. That's all.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Phil. This is very good. I wish I had seen this before trying to watch the 3-hour one.
Yeah, that was the intention. I mean, but then Pat forced me to share the. Can you stop recording first, so that I can bitch about it?
I just stopped it there.